am so thrilled to have Candace Bushnell back with me again on Talking Live. She is a friend of the show. You all know her from Sex in the City. She is the creator of that show, that book, and many other books and shows. And right now we are going to talk about her one-woman show, which is playing, I believe, all over the country, but I'm going to see her at the Carlisle, called Is There Still Sex in the City? Did I get that right, Candace?
Yes, that's what it is. Is there still Sex in the City? And it's at the Carlisle from April 25th through the 29th.
I'm so excited. I got my tickets.
That's
I think it's dinner and the show. And I've been wanting to see this show for so long. Basically, you are giving a peek and insight to the audience about your more personal life, your private life, and sharing that in a very entertaining way.
Yes. Well, it's the story of how I created Sex in the City, how hard I worked to get there, why I invented Carrie Bradshaw, and what happened to me after. And I do talk about, when I first came to New York, and tell stories, and there's video, and there's a little game, real or not real, because everything that happens to Carrie Bradshaw is a little bit better or a little bit worse than my real life. So we play this fun game, and it's great. So
it's more interactive, Candace, than other shows, because most shows are passive. You go in, you sit, and you watch, and this has a little bit of a different flair. Who came up with this idea?
Well, actually, a producer called Mark Johnson, who is David Foster's manager. David Foster is, he's a big music guy. So he, about 10 or 15 years ago, and I think a lot of people don't know this, but David Foster has a one-man show. And and you find out all kinds of things about David Foster that you never knew, like how many hits he's been involved in, and he has video, and then at the end, somebody gets up and sings. So there is a little bit of interaction. So I met this guy, Mark Johnson, and he said, you two could do a one-woman show, and these are the requirements. And he said, Sex in the City is huge, and it's huge all around the world. So we actually weren't even thinking about doing it in New York. It was really just going to be a road show. But then he started talking to people in New York in the Broadway world. So then we ended up really doing it as an off-Broadway show, where it was developed at the Bucks County Playhouse. And there's a stage, it was a costume designer, there was a stage person who designed the set. So it was actually a pretty big deal, like a much bigger deal than I thought it was going to be. And then we went to the Daryl Roth Theater off Broadway, which was like crazy, because I was like, I never thought I'd be doing, acting in an off Broadway show, my own one-woman show. And you got to do 8 performances a week. Well, we ended up doing 7, because I guess nobody does 8, but it's like really being a performer on stage, which is something completely different than anything I've ever done.
So it's very different than writing. And I'm wondering what the process was for you, writing a book versus writing a play, because it's a different skill set.
It is. And, to tell you the truth, I really did not go into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to work, because I really didn't know if it was going to work or not. And I felt like, well, if it doesn't work, what have I really lost? I mean, I honestly wrote it during the pandemic. I wrote it, I think I must have written it in 2020. Like I had my first meeting in the summer of 2020. And, nothing was really happening. Nobody knew anything. So I thought, well, I have this time. I'm going to do it. I didn't know if it was going to work, but then these Broadway people, they all loved it. And they raised money, they're raising money, the whole thing. There's a management company and there are reports like if you sell out, it's like I was like, whoa, if I do this and I sell out every night, I'm like, I could be making some bank here.
Yeah.
Which was
it's incredible.
It's not that much. It's not really a lot of money, but it was, it was like, hey, this is interesting. And then they just really liked it. I just kept working on it and cutting it and taking notes. And
voila.
Yes. And it's a lot of notes. Like there's a director and it was choreographed with, movements. You go here, you say this when you're standing there. They do not want you to change it. If you change any words, you get notes. Like, don't do that. I mean, that was another thing. It's like, what am I in school?
And it's also your play about you. See,
exactly.
I would need creative freedom, because that's the one thing it's so interesting as I was reading about the play and some of the things you said about it, was that it was way easier for you to be an actor, as being a part of this play, an actor in this play versus writing. And I was thinking, oh my God, like I hated acting. I found it so hard. I wouldn't be able to stick to a script, especially if I had written it. Like, so I was kind of shocked when I read that, and I wanted to ask you more about that.
Well, writing, it's like writing a novel is hard. I mean, it's really hard. People do not understand how hard it is. You've got, it's like, I mean, you've got pages and pages of, hours of a story that you have to really keep track of. Like, you have to know what's happening in the space of like 500 pages. Like, I need to know what's happening at the beginning. I need to know what's happening at the end. I need to know everything that's happening in between. And you've got to create it. Like, and every single day when you sit down, you have to be inventing something new and keeping it moving. And it's incredibly complicated. Whereas, I mean, honestly, this little acting part, now, if I was like in a Shakespeare play, it would be so easy. But
I would pay to see that too, Candace.
It's like, for whatever reason, I don't have stage fright. That was one of the reasons why this producer was like, you can do this one woman show because you're not afraid. If I were afraid, if I was like, oh my God, I have stage fright, I can't do it, I would never do it because it's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wonder where you get that from. No stage fright, because there are actors that have stage fright. It's quite normal for people in the entertainment business, and they try to use that to their advantage.
Yes. I mean, it's, there are moments when you can be on stage and it's like something horrible can happen. Like you feel like you've lost control of the narrative, or God, if you forget, like, if you blank out, it's like,
yeah. So, what do you do? I mean, have you
or
ever...
people, for whatever reason, if you feel like, oh my God, all of a sudden everybody, because audiences are weird. There could be one person in the audience who doesn't like you and they can affect everybody else.
Yes.
Or there could be somebody they really like you, and then everybody's like, yay, we like you too. And that could be the scariest part. That could be like being on the school, in the schoolyard, at like
Yeah.
8 years old. But he decides like, oh, they hate you and they're gonna make fun of you. I mean, that's like, it could be the worst feeling. So
It does bring up those fears, right? Do you like me? I want to entertain you. I want you to like me. So there is vulnerability,
right.
and also moods can be very contagious,
Yes.
although not personal.
Yes. So when I was first doing it in the Bucks County Playhouse, people were wearing masks. So I couldn't really see their facial expressions. And it's really easy to get caught up in this idea where you decide that somebody hates you, or somebody doesn't like you. You could just tell by their facial expressions. And so I would, and I would talk to people, my director and stuff, and she was like, that's not true. She's like, some people just have, they have resting bitch face.
Yeah.
She said, you cannot tell if people are having a good time or not by looking at their expressions. She's like, sometimes people are thinking.
Yeah.
So that's something that like I had to learn to do.
Yeah.
Like, don't, because, people don't understand. It's like, I can see you.
Right.
I can see you.
I see you making that frown, and
Exactly.
I don't like it. It's impacted me. And I guess you're not a comedian, so you can't stop mid-show and be like, hey, you're frowning. What's going on? But
well,
I did
know what? You can do that. You can ad lib, but they really don't want you to ad lib, because it is true. Like, if you're going to ad lib, you have to be able to get like right back on to that script. So, I mean, the problem is, like, sometimes if you ad lib, you can lose the thread, and then it's like, shit.
Yeah.
So
this is why I find acting so hard, and I'm so glad I don't go anywhere near it. But I was reading, I was having this thought as I was reading about your one woman show, and I was like, you've lived such a fantastic life. I wonder if some woman in the audience might feel envious of you. And I wonder if that could be something that you feel while you're performing.
Yeah, I don't usually feel that.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess because I don't know. I just don't, I feel like my audience isn't really like that. I mean, they tend to be women who are very confident, and tend to be women who are, they're smart. They tend to be women who have it together.
Yeah.
And like Sex in the City, it was a smart show. It was considered smart. So
yes,
it tends to be, women who are, ambitious. They know how to operate in the world.
That's such an interesting point you make. And also, the discussion you're having is really interesting, and it was based on your own life. You wanted to see if there was sex in the city when you're in your midlife years, and you had some theories about this. You did your research. What did you find out?
Well, I'm still doing my research. I mean, now I'm, for some, in the last year, I decided, okay, I'm really going to try the dating apps. So I've actually gone on 3. I mean, at first, when I first started writing, Is There Still Sex in the City? Because it was a book.
Yeah.
I had never gone on a dating app, and I went on Tinder, and I interviewed a whole bunch of young women, and I went on Tinder myself. And it seemed really, this was before the pandemic, it seemed grim. It just seemed really grim.
Mm.
I felt like, because all of these young people, Gen millennials and Gen Zs, they go on these dating sites and they seem to have a lot of bad experiences. Like,
Yes.
dating in person, it used to be out of 10 experiences, maybe 2 were kind of bad, weird, like you were like, nah. But 2 would be really good.
Yeah.
And that would make you feel like, hey, the world is kind of a safe place to date. I can go out there, I can find somebody, they like me, I like them. It's super romantic. We're going out. It's all the excitement. And, and then kind of, maybe, maybe 6 of the dates are like, whatever. But for these young people, it seemed like 8 out of the 10 dates were bad experiences.
Yeah. And the ghosting.
There's no follow-up. And then those other 2 were hopeful, but then they disappear.
Yes.
So it's like there were no good experiences in there. And, but so now I've started going on these apps, and
what have you found?
It's like one of the things that I think is really interesting, and this isn't something that I talk about in the show because I haven't put it in, but like that old idea that men age better than women is 100% not true.
Not
like
true.
When I go on these dating apps, I am looking for guys my age, but I'm also like, okay, they could be 10 years younger and 10 years older. Well, the ones who are 10 years, a lot of men in their 50s, I'm like, dude, you are not 50. You look like you're 70.
Yeah.
And they've got big bushy gray beards. That's not a good look. I want to say, get some Botox.
Yeah.
Fix the teeth.
Lose some weight.
Get a little bit better shape. And, shave off that hair growth.
Yeah.
Nothing says old man. Nothing says grandpa faster than a big gray beard. It's like,
I agree with you. I think it is really hard.
And the also, women look kind of ageless in a way.
Yeah.
It's like you can't, okay, you can tell, but it's like, somebody who's in their 60s at least can easily pass for 10 years younger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think because we have so much available to us, and we also have an ageless mindset. Like, I still feel 27. I know I'm not 27. I know I'm 57. So obviously I've lived a few decades, but kind of there's an internal energy, especially if you're excited by your life. So I don't know if men feel that or not. I think they may experience the aging process a little differently.
Although they would certainly, of course, the other thing that one finds is that there's a lot of entitlement amongst heterosexual men. Look, this isn't true of all men. This is just true of the area that I'm in. But, there's a lot of entitlement that I can be with somebody younger, and, and they are. And I look at these women and it's like, really? I with that guy. And the other thing is, a lot of these guys, they don't have it together.
Yeah.
I see a lot of men who were married for 15 or 20 years, and they get divorced. They give a lot of resources to the wife. People have different, a lot of the time there's a family life that was really kind of just for show, like everything's
Yeah.
mortgaged. The
Right.
divorce comes, and it's like the guy's living in a tiny one bedroom. It's like he's on dating apps, he's having a great time, but
they're kind of like broken pennies in some cases, like they're broken, and there's a feeling of failure that doesn't necessarily get negotiated properly, or they don't navigate through that properly, because men don't always know how to talk and process their emotions. At least women have their friends, and we're always talking intimately. And I think that's something that Sex in the City revealed, and all of your novels show, just that women have a different kind of relationship with each other, which can be very psychologically healing in many ways.
exactly. So those are my experiences.
Do you think what you're looking for now in your, 60s is different than what you were looking for when you were in your 20s and 30s?
Not really.
No?
I mean, no, because, well, first of all, I'm not looking to have kids, and I wasn't looking to have kids in my 20s or 30s.
Okay.
Although I would say in my 20s, I was, looking more to get married because I'd never been married. So that seems to be a big thing. But also, I mean, I would say, one is open to the idea of, hey, I could find a new partner. It's really about like finding a partner, somebody to do things with, somebody to go through life with. And, but not necessarily looking for kids, not necessarily looking to jump into a cohabitation.
Do you think the qualities you're looking for are different? Like it's not just about
my own.
I was thinking, does it change from like hot sex? Do you realize sex is a part of it, but it's more important to have somebody that challenges your mind or has qualities of honesty and
I think one wants to look for all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to find somebody who's, they know how to be there.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
And
no, I think it's really true.
And you're willing to be there for them. And maybe the sex is a little bit less important, but it's less important for everybody these days. They have so many other things to do besides having sex. Although I think a lot of men still have this idea in their brain that like they're gonna be with somebody younger. But you know what? Listen, they have their problems too. They're, older men problems as well. So they are not immune from stuff.
Yeah. And also a lot of younger women don't want older men unless they have a lot of money because they don't want to deal with it and they're in a different life phase. So younger women don't always want that either.
I mean, to me, it really, it's like, I think this is a time when I would really not so much want to be with somebody who's younger because people's lives are so different in your 40s versus your 60s. When you're in your 30s and 40s, you're really like in this reproductive phase. Nothing bad's happening to you. I mean, that you're super stressed, you're doing everything, but you still feel like, hey, I can still do all of this stuff in life. Whereas the reality is for people in their 60s, you know what? You can't keep going because society doesn't want you to keep going. And, if you're a man, and, this happens to men a lot, but in business and banking, like banking is especially, this is what everyone tells me, at 55, you're out.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want you. You are gonna, you're losing your job. So for a lot of people, the reality is that you kind of have to be cutting down, unless you're one of the very lucky few that you're having some kind of career resurgence in your 60s and 70s, which, doesn't happen to that many people. And you're incredibly healthy.
Right.
Which is, we all wish for that, but the reality is it's not true for everybody.
You talk about too that your one woman show is very physically demanding, and just what you have to do in order to stay physically fit for this one woman show.
Yes. Well, I was doing a lot of Pilates.
And it works. I mean, it seems like you're so energized. Candace, the other thing is you really want to connect with women and send a message out to women through your books and through this one woman show. What is the message you're most interested in sending out right now?
I think it's the same message as always. It's really about being independent and trying to look at the world, not through a sexist lens that is really, really pushed on heterosexual women. And, to try not to get caught up in the traps of the romantic industrial complex. And it is, it really is about being independent and having your own self.
I think you're so right. And I would like to just end that piece on your message. And also we do something called the Quick Five. I think you've done this with me before, Candace, right? The Quick Five, where I ask you 5 quick questions. And some of the questions my audience has also asked. So here's the first thing. What is great about being in your 60s, and what can people look forward to in their 50s and beyond?
People always ask that question, and a part of me really wants to say nothing. Okay. You'll hear a lot of people will say, like, there's wisdom and there's this and there's that. There might be, but the reality is that I think you're not so tied to the patriarchy. You can't operate in the same way in the world because you're not bearing children. So already, in a way, society, you have a lot less value all over the world. I mean, these are the realities. And so you have to find another kind of value for yourself. So that's really what it's about.
It's about creativity, I would think, too. That comes.
Yes. I mean, for a lot of women, they will discover a whole new side of themselves, which can be a very creative side and can be a very smart side. I think if you don't get into the, I got to take female hormones thing, because it really is about being willing to, without all those female hormones in your head, you may find that you think a little bit differently. And you can have a little bit more courage. You're not so tied to, like, God, does everybody like me? Am I liked by men? Am I, So that part, I think, can be freeing.
Yes, and empowering.
Anybody is going to pay attention to you is an entirely different story.
All right, let me ask you this. Did Carrie Bradshaw have a favorite friend out of her friend group? Do you think?
I don't even know what Carrie Bradshaw you're talking about. I mean, are you talking about Sarah Jessica Parker and Just Like That? I have no idea.
No, I'm talking about in the Sex and the City you created. Did Carrie Bradshaw have a favorite friend within her group? Did she favor Miranda, Samantha, Charlotte? Not the actors, because I know that there's a whole drama.
No, I don't. Yeah, I know, but yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. I can't like extrapolate what was on the TV show. It's too complicated.
But what about in your book? In the character in your book, did she have a favorite friend, or just
in the book? The character of Carrie Bradshaw had lots and lots of friends.
Okay, so there wasn't a favorite.
There were way more than 4 women characters in the book. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about in the stage show.
Okay, so things to look forward to. Okay, if you could learn one skill instantly, what would it be?
TikToking. Like how to make money on TikTok. Yes.
Yeah.
I want that free TikTok money.
Yeah, me too. When you figure it out,
I want to buy a big mansion with my TikTok money.
Okay, what is your earliest memory?
Oh, God, my earliest memory is probably when I was really, really little and my parents had somebody came to visit them.
Oh.
I was very, very young. Like that, I was like, ooh, a stranger came.
Uh-huh.
That never happened. Or that was like the first, probably happened all the time, but it was like, that was one of the first things I remember.
It's like a different energy in the room.
Right.
What accomplishments of yours, which there are so many, are you most proud of?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like, I never think about, what are my accomplishments? I just don't think that way. I mean,
you just live your life and create.
I live my life. I've always, I always like to be creating something and getting paid. That's really what I think about. So I'm usually, thinking about whatever I'm doing or the next thing.
What I usually say is, if you love me, pay me. I know that we're coming to an end, and I just want people to know where they can find you and the show, and we'll have links up, but where can people buy tickets for your one-woman show?
Well, I'm doing it at the Carlisle. I will also be doing it, at a theater in Poughkeepsie. I'm doing it, and it's all can be on my website, www.CandaceBushnell.com.
We will put up your website. Thank you so much. And thank you to our Talking Live audience for joining us. We love you, Candace. I hope you feel the love.
Thank you, sweetie. I'll see you soon.